My name is Brandy Williams, and I'm very honored to have been asked to participate in this online forum. I'll introduce myself. I'm a pagan and a magician. As a pagan, I'm a priestess of the gods. As a magician, I'm a theurgist. So theurgy is God work, and that can mean learning the work of the gods, and it also means seeking the gods in myself. I wrote recently a piece that I think is meaningful in the context of this conference. The conference is about visions of magic. And I actually wrote a piece called The Future of Magic for Llewellyn's complete book of ceremonial magic. I was asked by the editors, Lon Milo Duquette and David Shoemaker, to contribute this piece. And it was a huge honor to do it. And I did it as a vision. It's a vision, and I experienced it as I wrote it, which is a very interesting way to write a piece. But I prepared for this vision by studying the future. And I was interested in the future of magic. I was asked to write this because I'm an innovator. I love the magical traditions, and I believe that they should be preserved and passed on as we received them intact. But I also know each generation changes magic to fit the needs of our times. My work has focused first on gender, on reworking the traditions to break out of the boxes of gender conformity, and to then go on to race. I went on to include those kinds of ideas to make room for the voices of people of color and acknowledge the roots of the esoteric traditions in African Egypt and India. And so that's where my work has been. But as I thought about the future and talked to people about it, it struck me that there is a deep despair many of the people I was talking to experience. Global warming and income inequity have left people really feeling that they have no control over their lives. Some people are suicidal. They feel that there is no future. It's been stolen. And it seems to me that this is exactly where magic comes into its own. People have always turned to magic to make sense of the world and to extend our influence into the world. Magic does not accept that fate is unalterable. Magic is how we change fate. So it became important to me to take back the future. And I had this sense of taking the future and giving it out to people. This is the future. You have it. You can yourself make changes that make things happen. I have a very strong sense that the future belongs to each of us individually and to all of us collectively. And that sense comes from both my understanding and experience, and also from my visions as a priestess who has visions. I was recently talking to a pagan priestess who lives in Oakland. She'd been going out for a walk that day, and she sat on a hilltop and looked out over the city. And she had a vision of the city 100 years in the future, a vision where there was a lot more green space and there were very few cars, and people were living close to their homes, growing gardens, interacting with each other more on a local level. And this matched very closely a vision I myself had a few years ago when I visited Santa Clara, California, which is pretty close to Oakland. And I saw this same thing, this idea that the world had greened out, that technology had backed out a little bit, but it was in the service of the people who were using it. And life had really relocalized. And that vision reassured me that we do have a future, that green life and human life will continue on this planet past this century. And having that vision matched by my friend also gave me a sense of comfort that we're seeing the same thing, that the future does exist. So the powerful try to convince us that they own the future, but we don't have to accept that. We can ourselves, as magicians, actualize our futures. We can actualize the future of my vision. And since I'd been asked to write about the future, I thought it was a good idea to look into how other people think about this. And I learned that there's a whole field called future studies, or really futures studies, like in the plural, because there's more than one future. There's more than one possibility for the future. And in future studies, I learned the very helpful concept of power circles. The circles are ourselves, our family, our community, and the world. And the idea of the circles is that our power is greatest when it is closest to us. When you think about it, this is as true for magic as it is for anything else in our lives. The idea is that we build power from ourselves out. We build our actions from ourselves through family and our groups, then to the community, and then out to the world. And in doing this, in building power from ourselves out, love is the compass. When we act from love, our actions land. They make sense, and they make the world possible. So for future magic, we can think about the kind of future that we want and then make affirmations based on that. And this is an exercise we can each do individually, and we can also do it in groups. Just now, the world is facing a pandemic and it's interrupted our everyday lives. That's upsetting. We're not sure what the future will look like. And we all need to cope with this on a day-to-day basis. Because the pattern of the world has been interrupted, it's also an opportunity to rethink what we want. What kind of life do we want for ourselves? What kind of life do we want for our families and our communities and our common world? The life right now, my life right now, much more closely resembles my vision than it did even a few months ago, because the cars have stopped and people are relocalizing and getting out in their gardens, right? So this is a future that can continue. So here's the exercise. The exercise is to think about what you want for yourself, for your family, for your community, and for the world. And then to build actions and affirmations that begin to actualize those visions. So you can think about it. You can write on a piece of paper. You can make a collage. You can talk to your friends about what they want. Anything, any way that that you normally use to capture your own thoughts and to share them with other people, you can do that. You can make videos. You can make recordings and share them with people. So to start with, what do you want for yourself? What's the future that you want for yourself? And of course, there are some things that always come up: security, having a place to live, and food, and healthcare, health, and that's a really big item on everyone's mind right this moment. Love, we all need connection and friends and people who care about us. And meaningful work, remember that. It's important for us to have purpose. So next, family, and this can be blood relations or your chosen family, the few people who are closest to you. What do you want for yourself? What do you want for them? So there's some ideas. You want mutual support, clear communication, and of course there's always health and love and prosperity. We want this for each other. So next, the community. The next circle out is the community. And this can be your neighborhood, like your physical location. It can also be the circles that you belong to, and those can be virtual organizations, groups, internet groups. So we have purpose circles as well. And so what do we want for our community? And some ideas are that every one of us is clothed and fed and has health care and is connected with community. That our communities come alive with the sense of understanding that we are communities and that we are cooperating with each other. And finally, for the world, personally, I would like to affirm the UN Declaration of Universal Human Rights governs our behavior. It's an agreement that we have, and it's a pretty good agreement. And also to make a cultural shift away from mechanical philosophy and moving into understanding that the world is a living world. A few centuries ago, we moved away from the understanding that the world is a living organism, the biosphere. We began to think of it as a mechanism, as something that you can take apart. There are parts of it that aren't living. And we see the results of this all around us, that we drove ourselves to the place where people really don't feel that we have a future or that the world can withstand us. And so moving from the idea that the world is a mechanism back to the understanding that everything on the earth is part of life and is interconnected, that shift can really help shift policy and the way we behave toward each other and toward the world. And it begins to support the sustaining of life, prioritize life. So that's my affirmation. Then actualizing that, how do we take those ideas, those affirmations, and move them into our future, into something that manifests? So starting with ourselves, remembering to be gentle with ourselves. You are not what has happened to you. And while what has happened to you informs your experience now, and your choices inform your experience now, you can make a new choice every moment. Every moment is an opportunity to just slide into being someone else, if that's what you want. Get a meditation practice, any meditation practice, releasing what has happened, and then accepting love from spirit, however we conceptualize that. I have lots of ways that I conceptualize it. Just now I've been doing a lot of Nuit practice. So Nuit is the star goddess. And I imagine myself in a desert looking up at the sky and chanting to Nuit, and feeling her love around me. That's one way that I accept love from spirit. So actualizing what we want for our families. Tell your people you love them. Sometimes it's hard. Because the life has gotten so uncertain now. Even when I'm talking to my friends, I tell them that I love them. And at first it felt a little awkward and a little strange, but people really do respond to that quite well. Now, different people in different cultures may have other ways to handle that, but I encourage you, at least with the people that we're closest to, tell them that you love them. That's a really important thing, and it helps people to understand they are in fact cared for. Right now, we're doing this thing where we're isolating from each other. That's one of the effects of the pandemic, and people really do feel that they're alone. So getting someone on a video conference or on the phone or even in email, tell them that you care about them, that that they're part of your family. That's really important right now. In actualizing what's happening with community, do one thing to help someone else. Until this month, I had a lot of suggestions about going to meetings and connecting with people that way, and I think that may not be the right choice at this moment, but there are lots of things that you can do virtually that helps other people. Just reaching out and talking to people helps a lot. So do one thing, help someone else. With the world, to actualize our affirmations from the world, just make an affirmation that the world is alive. Understand that we are all not walking on the earth, we're walking in the earth. We have this conceptualization that there's air and there's earth, and we walk in the air and then we walk on the earth. But if you think of the world as a living biosphere, the end of the world is actually 7 miles above our head. We're walking around inside the body of the earth, and we're all interacting with each other inside this living being. So we make the affirmation that the world is alive and we are within it. And then relate to other living things, relate to the things in your environment, to trees, to the desert, to plants. I know I live in a forested area, so I have a tree that I go and just lean against and touch. Interacting with living things is important. So finally, just take these affirmations, these ideas, and make them into an affirmation. Write it down. Say, I affirm that the world is alive. I affirm that my family is connected and that we support each other with mutual love. I affirm that my community is vibrant and that we support each other. And then share those. There's lots of ways right now that we can share our understandings in Facebook, in Instagram, in social media. So those are my suggestions. That's kind of where my thoughts are at this moment in our history, and at this moment in our development of magic. People need magicians now. People need pagans now more than ever. They need people. The world needs people who understand that the world is alive and that divinity is within the world and divinity is within us. So I hope that everyone who hears this continues to stay safe and continues to find meaning and love in your lives. And thank you for the opportunity to share this.